You could give a narcissist your soul, and they would still ask what else you're bringing tomorrow. Because the truth is this: narcissists are loyal to one thing only. And once you see what it is, everything about the relationship suddenly makes sense. If this is starting to sound uncomfortably familiar, pause here. Like this video or follow, not for motivation, but for clarity. Because understanding this dynamic is often the first moment people stop blaming themselves. Narcissists evaluate people through usefulness rather than emotional connection, because their internal world is organized around survival of the self-image, not mutual attachment. From early on, relationships are unconsciously categorized as resources. Who provides admiration, who offers compliance, who absorbs blame, who regulates their emotions. Emotional bonding requires recognizing another person as separate, complex, and worthy of care, even when they are not providing something. That level of recognition threatens a narcissist's fragile sense of control, so it is replaced with a transactional lens. People are not experienced as partners, but as functions. What matters is not who you are, but what role you serve in maintaining their stability. This is why effort, loyalty, and sacrifice don't register in the way a healthy person expects. When you show up emotionally, the narcissist does not internalize warmth or gratitude. They register availability. When you help, they do not feel closeness, they feel entitlement. The nervous system is not wired to store relational goodwill, only to scan for current usefulness. Once the benefit is extracted, the emotional memory fades quickly. Yesterday's devotion does not protect you today because it was never bonded to attachment in the first place. Usefulness is also fluid. You may be idealized when you are convenient, validating, or impressive to others. The moment your usefulness decreases, when you set limits, express needs, experience vulnerability, or stop performing, the valuation shifts. Devaluation follows not because you changed as a person, but because your role changed. The narcissist experiences this as logical rather than cruel. If a tool no longer works the way it used to, it is discarded or replaced. This dynamic creates deep confusion for partners who assume relationships operate on cumulative emotional investment. They believe love builds over time. For the narcissist, time does not deepen attachment, it only increases expectation. The longer you give, the more it is seen as your responsibility. Emotional connection would require accountability, empathy, and reciprocity, which would expose dependence. Usefulness avoids that risk. It keeps the narcissist in control, insulated from vulnerability, and focused on immediate self-regulation rather than genuine connection. Effort, sacrifice, and loyalty do not create security with a narcissist, because security in their internal world does not come from trust or emotional continuity. It comes from dominance and control over the relational environment. In healthy relationships, consistency builds safety because both people are invested in preserving the bond. In narcissistic dynamics, consistency from one side is interpreted as leverage. The more reliably you show up, the less they feel required to. Your commitment does not reassure them. It confirms that they can withdraw without consequence. This is why giving more never stabilizes the relationship. Sacrifice is not experienced as love, but as proof that you will tolerate imbalance. Loyalty is not perceived as devotion, but as predictability. Once your behavior becomes predictable, the narcissist feels less pressure to maintain effort or integrity. Emotional security would require mutual vulnerability, which threatens their need to remain superior and untouchable. So instead of leaning in, they detach while keeping you emotionally invested. Another reason effort fails to build security is that narcissists do not experience relationships as cumulative. There is no emotional savings account where past kindness earns future care. Each moment is evaluated in isolation based on how well it serves their immediate needs. You can carry the entire relationship for years and still be treated as disposable the moment you stop performing. Your history together does not protect you because history implies continuity and responsibility, both of which feel burdensome to someone who relies on others to regulate their self-esteem. Loyalty also activates contempt over time. When you remain devoted despite mistreatment, the narcissist does not feel chosen, they feel elevated. They conclude that you stay not because of mutual value, but because you have no better options. This perception erodes respect and accelerates devaluation. Paradoxically, the more you try to prove your worth, the more invisible it becomes. What creates security for a narcissist is not love, but control of outcomes. As long as they believe you will remain available regardless of their behavior, they feel secure enough to disengage emotionally. Security is not built through closeness, but through dominance, which is why no amount of effort can ever anchor the relationship in a stable mutual bond. Their loyalty is directed toward control, supply, and self-image rather than people because those elements are what keep the narcissistic structure intact. At the core, there is a fragile sense of identity that depends on constant external regulation. Admiration stabilizes it, compliance reassures it, and control protects it from exposure. People are valuable only insofar as they serve these functions. Attachment to a person would require flexibility, accountability, and emotional reciprocity, all of which risk disrupting the carefully maintained image of superiority and independence. Control provides predictability. When others respond in expected ways, the narcissist feels oriented and powerful. Supply provides emotional fuel. Praise, attention, and validation temporarily soothe internal emptiness and insecurity. Self-image provides meaning. Maintaining the narrative of being exceptional, wronged, or entitled organizes their behavior and justifies their actions. Loyalty to these three elements is consistent because without them, the internal system destabilizes. Loyalty to a person would introduce variables they cannot fully manage. This is why relationships feel conditional and unstable. As long as you reinforce their control, supply their needs, and reflect the image they want to see, you are valued. The moment you disrupt any of these by setting boundaries, needing support, disagreeing, or existing as a separate individual, the loyalty shifts. It is not personal in the way people assume. The attachment was never to you as a human being, but to the role you played in sustaining their equilibrium. This also explains the suddenness with which they can detach or replace people. There is no mourning process because what is lost is not a bond but a function. Another source can be located to fulfill the same role. The emotional tone may change. Rage, indifference, idealization of someone new, but the underlying allegiance remains unchanged. For those on the receiving end, this feels deeply dehumanizing because normal relationships are built on recognition and shared history. In a narcissistic dynamic, history has value only as a tool for control or self-justification. When it stops serving that purpose, it is rewritten or erased. Understanding this shift in loyalty is painful, but it clarifies why no amount of authenticity or patience can secure devotion from someone whose primary allegiance is to maintaining their own psychological survival structure. Overgiving increases devaluation rather than appreciation because it disrupts the balance that allows respect to form. In healthy relationships, generosity flows in both directions and is met with recognition. In narcissistic dynamics, excessive giving removes the need for mutual effort. When one person consistently gives more, the narcissist does not experience gratitude. They experience superiority. The imbalance confirms a hierarchy in which your needs matter less, and that hierarchy becomes emotionally comfortable for them. Over time, overgiving communicates that your boundaries are flexible and your self-worth is negotiable. The narcissist unconsciously interprets this as weakness, not kindness. Because they rely on power and control to regulate themselves, they are drawn to positions where they feel dominant. Your sacrifices become evidence that you will absorb discomfort so they don't have to. Instead of feeling closer, they feel more entitled. What begins as appreciation quickly turns into expectation. Another reason devaluation increases is that overgiving removes mystery and autonomy. Respect requires perceiving the other person as having choice. When you give excessively, especially without reciprocity, the narcissist stops seeing your actions as voluntary. They assume you give because you have no alternative. This erodes their perception of your value. In their internal logic, something freely given over and over must not be worth much. Overgiving also shields the narcissist from consequences. When you compensate for their lack of effort, they never have to confront their limitations or accountability. This allows grandiosity to persist unchecked. Rather than recognizing your contribution, they minimize it to preserve the belief that they are self-sufficient and deserving. Acknowledging your sacrifices would require humility and gratitude, which feel threatening to their self-concept. For the giver, this creates a painful paradox. You believe that doing more will inspire care, but it actually accelerates emotional distance. The narcissist feels less incentive to invest because the relationship already revolves around their needs. As devaluation deepens, your giving may even be used against you, reframed as desperation, manipulation, or obligation. Understanding this dynamic helps explain why restraint, boundaries, and self-respect are more stabilizing than sacrifice in relationships marked by narcissistic patterns. Narcissists rewrite history to erase what you've done for them because accurate memory threatens the narrative they rely on to protect their self-image. Acknowledging your sacrifices, patience, or loyalty would require them to recognize dependence and indebtedness, which conflicts with their need to feel superior and self-sufficient. Instead of integrating reality, they reshape it. Events are selectively remembered, minimized, or distorted so that the story always centers their entitlement and innocence. This rewriting is not always conscious lying. It is often a defensive psychological process. When reality creates discomfort, it is altered internally to restore emotional equilibrium. Your contributions become exaggerated as obligations, reframed as insignificant, or denied altogether. What once was, "You supported me when I had nothing," becomes, "You didn't really do much," or "You only did that because you wanted something." This shift protects them from guilt and preserves control. History is also rewritten to maintain dominance in the present. If your efforts were acknowledged accurately, it would give you leverage. It would validate your perspective and make your pain harder to dismiss. By erasing or twisting the past, the narcissist undermines your confidence in your own memory. This destabilization keeps you focused on proving yourself again rather than holding them accountable. Confusion becomes a tool of control. Another function of rewriting history is justification of current behavior. Devaluation, withdrawal, or replacement require a moral explanation. By reframing the past as disappointing or inadequate, the narcissist can convince themselves that their actions are reasonable. They were never supported, always alone, or taken advantage of. This internal narrative allows them to exit or mistreat the relationship without self-reflection. For the person on the receiving end, this creates profound self-doubt. You remember giving, caring, sacrificing, yet you are told it never happened or never mattered. The disconnect can feel disorienting and invalidating. Over time, you may begin to question your worth and reality. Understanding that this rewriting serves emotional self-protection, not truth, can help you detach from the need for validation. Your efforts do not disappear because someone refuses to acknowledge them. They remain real, even when erased from someone else's story. They feel entitled to your efforts rather than grateful because entitlement is built into the narcissistic worldview. At a deep level, they believe they deserve special treatment without reciprocal responsibility. This belief is not based on logic or fairness, but on an internal hierarchy where their needs are automatically prioritized. When you give, support, or sacrifice, it does not register as generosity that required choice or effort on your part. It registers as confirmation that things are unfolding the way they should. Gratitude requires the recognition that another person has agency, limits, and the right to say no. It also requires humility, the acknowledgement that you benefited from someone else's care. For a narcissist, both ideas are threatening. Admitting gratitude would mean admitting dependence, and dependence clashes with the self-image of superiority and autonomy. Entitlement removes that discomfort. If they believe your efforts are owed to them, they never have to confront vulnerability or appreciation. This entitlement also explains why they become irritated or dismissive when you are tired, unavailable, or ask for support in return. From their perspective, you are malfunctioning in your role. They are not thinking, you've done so much, of course you need rest. They are thinking, why are you withholding what I'm supposed to receive? This mindset turns your humanity into an inconvenience rather than something to be respected. Over time, entitlement escalates. What once felt like kindness becomes an expectation. What once felt optional becomes mandatory. If you continue giving, the bar keeps moving. If you stop, the reaction is not disappointment, but anger or contempt. Gratitude would soften these responses, but entitlement hardens them. It allows the narcissist to frame themselves as deprived rather than demanding. For the giver, this dynamic is exhausting and disorienting. You may notice that nothing you do ever feels enough and appreciation never lasts. The absence of gratitude is not because your efforts lacked value, but because acknowledging value would disrupt the narcissist's internal balance of power. Understanding this helps shift the question from, why don't they appreciate me, to, why am I giving to someone who believes they are owed my energy? When you stop serving a narcissist's needs, their attachment disappears because their connection to you is conditional, not emotional. In healthy relationships, bonds are maintained through mutual care, trust, and respect. In narcissistic dynamics, bonds exist only as long as you supply what they require. attention, admiration, compliance, or validation. Your presence is valuable only in relation to the benefit you provide. The moment that benefit is removed, the attachment is no longer necessary and the illusion of closeness collapses. This is why it can feel so sudden and shocking when a narcissist seems emotionally absent after you establish boundaries or withdraw effort. The disappearance is not a reflection of your worth or the history you shared. It is the natural outcome of a relationship structured around instrumental value. Narcissists do not internalize loyalty in the way healthy partners do. They do not store gratitude, memory, or care as relational currency. Their investment is tied entirely to supply. When that supply stops, the emotional investment disappears simultaneously. It is as if the relationship never existed because the elements that sustained it, the function you provided, are gone. This dynamic often triggers confusion and doubt for the person on the receiving end. You may wonder why years of loyalty, support, or effort could be dismissed so easily. It feels like abandonment, but it is not about abandonment in the typical sense. The narcissist's need-based attachment means that their engagement was never grounded in empathy, respect, or genuine concern. Their sense of closeness was a projection of their own needs, and when those needs are no longer met, the projection retracts. Understanding this mechanism is critical for healing. Withdrawal or boundary setting does not provoke punishment. It simply reveals the truth of the attachment. It exposes that the relationship was never mutual and that your value was tied to what you provided rather than who you are. Once this pattern is recognized, you can stop attempting to earn devotion and start prioritizing relationships where attachment is based on mutual care rather than conditional supply. This clarity allows you to reclaim emotional space and invest in connections that honor your inherent worth. Healing begins when you stop trying to earn value from a narcissist because the entire dynamic is structured around conditional worth. In these relationships, no matter how much you give, sacrifice, or accommodate, it will never generate genuine recognition or emotional reciprocity. Understanding this is the first step toward reclaiming your autonomy. The realization that your efforts were never the measure of your worth can be both painful and liberating because it shifts the focus from trying to fix the narcissist to restoring your own sense of self. When you stop seeking their approval or striving to meet their expectations, the need for validation from someone incapable of providing it diminishes. This creates space for self-reflection and self-compassion. You begin to see that your energy, time, and attention are finite resources, and that they are best invested where they are met with appreciation rather than taken for granted. It is in this shift that emotional freedom emerges. The constant anxiety of wondering whether your actions were enough begins to dissipate, and you regain clarity about your boundaries, priorities, and values. Letting go of trying to earn their love also interrupts the cycle of manipulation and control. Narcissists rely on people bending over backward to meet impossible expectations, and when that stops, their influence weakens. Withdrawal is not about revenge or punishment. It is a practical strategy for reclaiming stability and breaking patterns of psychological dependency. Your emotional energy is redirected toward healing, building resilience, and creating meaningful connections with people who can reciprocate care authentically. Over time, this process reestablishes internal security. You no longer define your worth by someone else's inability to love properly. You start setting limits without guilt, valuing your contributions without seeking external approval, and recognizing that loyalty, respect, and gratitude are earned in healthy relationships. Healing in this context is not simply recovering from trauma, it is reconstructing a framework of self respect and empowerment that was undermined by the narcissistic dynamic. Once you fully internalize this understanding, the compulsion to prove yourself to someone who cannot recognize it fades, leaving space for authentic connection, self acceptance, and long term emotional stability.